Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. And we've got plenty ahead this Friday night ahead of the weekend. How should India be tackling Trump's tariff war? Among my special guests tonight, Shashi Tharoor will tell us where he stands on the Trump versus Modi government battle. My other guests include Montague Singh Ahluwalia. Is this India's 1991 moment? Can we turn crisis into opportunity? Also our continuing focus, Rahul Gandhis atom bomb. India Today's reality check from Bengaluru. Is Rahul Gandhi's claims valid or not? We've got plenty on the show tonight. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. Donald Trump remarks that talks with India now only after the tariff issue is resolved causes confusion. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal tells India Today, India is in talks with more nations and new markets. Russian President Vladimir Putin speaks to Prime Minister Modi, briefs him on developments in Ukraine. India and Russia reaffirm stronger strategic ties. Russian President likely to visit India later in the year. Rahul Gandhi versus EC face-off continues. Rahul accuses the EC of choreographing elections. Poll body hits out at him, asks him to either prove claim or issue an apology. Rahul says it's for the EC to investigate his charges. MK Stalin unveils Tamil Nadu's alternative to a national education policy, rolls out a 2-language policy where big push for science, AI and English. Income Tax Bill 2025 is withdrawn. New version to be introduced now on Monday in Parliament. New bill expected to simplify old tax structures and cut down legal confusion. Uttarkashi rescue operations continue. Over 500 moved to safety. Satellite images show 70% buildings demolished in Dharali village in the flood fury. Centre opposes lowering age of consent to 16, cites risk of trafficking and abuse. Hearing on plea challenging criminalization of consensual adolescent relationships in the Supreme Court. Israel's Gaza City plan sparks global condemnation over more possible destruction. Germany halts military exports. UK warns Netanyahu against taking over Gaza. And oil marketing firms to get 30,000 crores compensation for cooking gas losses. Decision aims to protect consumers from changes in global LPG prices. The story that we are breaking tonight, right at the very top, Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier this evening has spoken with Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Putin has briefed the Prime Minister on latest developments concerning Ukraine. The Prime Minister has reiterated India's consistent position for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to further deepen the Indian-Russian special and privileged strategic partnership. The Prime Minister inviting President Putin to visit India later this year for the annual bilateral summit. So that meeting, remember, is coming against the backdrop of the pressure that Donald Trump has put on India, saying he's escalating tariffs or punitive tariffs because of India's decision to import oil, cheap oil from Russia. So even as Vladimir Putin speaks to Prime Minister Modi, remember, you've got America putting pressure on India to downscale its economic relationship with with Russia at the moment. Our diplomatic affairs editor Geeta Mohan joins me. Geeta, is there messaging in all of this that somewhere while President Trump puts pressure on India to reduce dependence on oil from Russia, you've got Ajit Doval in Moscow, the Prime Minister speaking to President Putin?
Well, of course, there's messaging over here. They are looking at showing that India is firm on its position of engaging Russia. And India has never wavered on that, whether it's this administration or the past administrations. We've always found our way into waivers, into cutouts, into ensuring that our cooperation with Russia does not really move. But also remember, Rajdeep, this comes at a time when maybe a week from now, Putin will be meeting Trump. So while Putin meets Trump, DC cannot call up New Delhi and say, why is Prime Minister Modi engaging or speaking with President Putin? Of course, Ajit Doval, National Security Advisor, is in Moscow preparing for the very same annual visit that is going to take place and that Prime Minister Modi has invited President Putin for later this year. The more important messaging is also the fact that he'll also be going to China, but that is also something that's important for India to be engaged and a part of the SCO, where Russia and China are important member countries. So important messaging, but remember, there's engagement between DC and Moscow now,
Right.
and there is going to be meeting between Trump and Putin as well.
Geeta Mohan joining me at the top of the bulletin. Appreciate your joining us there. Okay, remember, this is the week which has seen US President Donald Trump make all the headlines, imposing an additional tariff. Many believe it's punitive sanctions of 25% on India for continuing trading, particularly in oil, with Russia. How should India be responding to this tariff war launched by Trump? I spoke earlier today with Dr. Shashi Tharoor, a Congress leader who heads the Parliamentary Committee on External Affairs. Shashi Tharoor is described Donald Trump's comments, especially calling India a dead economy, as an insult by a bully. Listen in to the full interview. Shashi Tharoor, senior Congress MP and chairperson of the Standing Committee on External Affairs. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Tharoor. You've taken a very strong stand on what America has done. You seem to suggest that if the United States puts 50% tariffs on India, India should retaliate with equal tariffs on United States. Do you want to explain your position, Dr. Tharoor?
Well, I mean, Mr. Trump likes to speak about reciprocal tariffs. That is reciprocity. So if indeed on the 27th of August, 50% kicks in, I see absolutely no reason why India should not insist on reciprocity. That's the principle that's involved. But that's a subsidiary point, Rajdeep. There's still 3 weeks to go almost. And we need to put those 3 weeks to good use by negotiating effectively, which I believe our negotiators are going to do. But we'll have to do this, obviously, with a certain amount of, shall we put it bluntly, a certain amount of resolve that if necessary, we're going to have to walk away. We are simply far too proud and independent a country to be allowing ourselves to be subject to being browbeaten or bullied by anybody. And as far as I'm concerned, these may be merely idiosyncratic negotiating tactics. You all know that Mr. Trump has a reputation for clinching deals in somewhat unusual ways. And this may merely be a way of putting pressure on us. But nonetheless, the way it was done was demeaning and belittling with the kind of language used. Secondly, it was unfair because now we have even China, which buys far more oil and gas and has a far bigger trade relationship with the US, with the Russians. China is going to be at 30% on the 27th of August, and we're going to be at 50%. So, I mean, it's just completely upending the entire notion of a strategic relationship with India versus a competitive rivalry with China. To my mind, if Mr. Trump can cast us so lightly to the winds, then we do have some serious rethinking to do as a country.
There are two parts from what you've said that I want to come to one by one. The first is you seem to suggest retaliatory tariffs as a way to sort of look up and stand up to the bully. Now, I've spoken to a number of economists who are saying we don't need to get into a tariff war. Let's keep the temperature down. Let's cool things down. Do you agree that that could be one way to do things? Because the moment you get into retaliatory tariffs, then you're getting into a tariff war that can spiral out of control. So that's the first part that I want to ask you.
Rajdeep, okay, so on that, let me say, first of all, I'm not suggesting any immediate reaction. I'm not even suggesting that we should immediately announce anything. All I'm saying is that when the 27th of August comes, If we are literally one of two countries on the entire planet that's paying 50%, you can be pretty sure that the bottom is going to drop out of our exports to America anyway. Because how many people who are importing Indian goods in America are going to be prepared to pay a 50% premium when our competitors, including Vietnam, Indonesia, even Pakistan and Bangladesh, are 20% or lower, 19% in some cases, 15% in some. So why would anyone buy anything from India at that point if we are at 50? So in any case, at that point, I think we should make it very clear that if you do this to us, we will do it to you. If we don't, we are essentially, what is the point of being cool when you've got a 50% tariff on you?
The second part of what you're saying is that you seem to suggest it's time to expose US double standards. Here is a country which is allowing China to import twice the amount of oil that we do from Russia. EU and the United States continues to trade with Russia and different products, but different standards are being imposed on us. So in a way, what you're also saying, the time has come to call out US or Trumpian double standards. Am I correct?
Well, absolutely. China is not the only one, by the way. The EU also buys, as you mentioned. But more important, even America, when their national interests are involved, they buy from Russia. You know what they're buying? They're buying very significant quantities of fertilizers. In the 5 months from January to May of 2025, they have actually bought $806 million, which you can multiply that by and add it to, if that's 5 months, and in 12 months, we're easily looking at 1.8 billion or so, minimum, maybe close to 2 billion. Uranium, which is something they get from Russia, they've got 28% increase since last year in their uranium imports from Russia. Palladium, which is used in catalytic converters. Their palladium imports last year were about almost $1 billion, 878 million. And then they're buying other small things, aircraft, engine parts, and chemicals, and God knows, industrial machinery, wood products. It's not that the Americans will deny themselves the right to buy from Russia. Now, how can Mr. Trump argue that our dollars are fueling the Russian war machine, but American dollars that they are spending in Russia are not fueling the Russian war machine? Isn't this arrant hypocrisy? Isn't this completely unfair and unjustified? So from my point of view, we really do need to point out that there is something completely wrong here. It may simply be, as I said, a question of Mr. Trump's negotiating style. He may actually be hoping that we will blink first. But he has certainly tried the wrong sort of language with a country that for 200 years groaned under the colonial yoke. We are simply not going to accept being dictated to, Rajdeep. Even if our government wanted to do it, I can assure you public opinion in this country, in parliament and the opposition, will all stand up unitedly saying that our self-respect is more important than an American market. So I think this is something that the Americans have always understood in the past. Previous Indian governments were treated with a great deal of respect by previous American presidents. This kind of disrespectful, belittling, demeaning language is not something which I'm afraid we will take kindly to in this country. Now, I'm not saying that we should be heated. As you've seen, I'm not being heated in my response. I'm just telling you, let us be absolutely conscious that we have a 3-week window. But at the end of that, if this unfairness persists, we have absolutely no reason not to walk away and look at other horizons. It will hurt in the short term. There will be some items, very, very few, which even despite 50% tariffs, they may still want to purchase from us. But everything else that is actually got 50% on it, you can be certain that the market for those items in America will dry up. We will have to find other markets. Who knows? Maybe there will be an enterprising UK producer who will import items from India, repackage them as made in UK and resell them to America. Then somebody will do a thriving business. The way in which people in Dubai are sending Indian goods to Pakistan that way, that may happen now. We may have a black market going on through other countries. With the UK, we have zero tariffs on 99% of our goods. So maybe that could be something that somebody in UK could start doing. I don't know.
But do you think, Dr. Tharoor, you mentioned the kind of deplorable language used by Donald Trump. Are you, in a way, taken aback? Have we misread Donald Trump, particularly Trump 2.0? we put our hands for friendship. The Prime Minister invested a lot of his personal equity. Up ki baar Trump Sarkar, Namaste Trump, Howdy Modi. And at the end of the day, what do we get? The US President calls India a dead economy, threatens us with these punitive tariffs. Are you, in a way, surprised? Have we been caught by surprise, or have we misread Donald Trump 2.0 in particular?
Look, on the dead economy comment, I really think it's nothing more than the equivalent of a schoolyard bully telling a smaller child your mother is ugly. He may not even have seen the mother. It's not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to be a way of basically insulting the other person. The idea is for the other person to feel taken aback and thereby to be at a weaker position. In this case, in a schoolyard bully, but in this other case, in a diplomatic negotiation. Mr. Trump is famous for his unconventional techniques. When Larry King asked him about his negotiating style in a famous interview, Rajdeep, Trump replied by saying, "Do you mind if I move my chair away from you? You have terrible breath coming out of your mouth. Do you realize that? Have people told you that?" Larry King was shattered, his face fell, and then Trump dominated the interview, got all his messages across. And in the end, when he got up and the cameras were switched off, he said to Larry King, "You wanted to see my negotiating style? I just showed you." That was the Donald Trump, I beg your pardon, of the art of the deal. So he will say and do anything to make a deal that he wants. But he may have picked the wrong target for insulting language.
But do you think, as you mentioned, there needs to be a consensus, a political consensus on how to deal with Trump? When Trump called India a dead economy, the Congress leadership, certainly Rahul Gandhi, sort of said, yes, Trump is right, we are a dead economy. Do you believe that we need to be more careful in our choice of words? We cannot echo what Donald Trump says. Does there need to be, therefore, a political consensus on taking on Donald Trump and calling him out in the manner that you are on this show at the moment?
Rajiv, I speak honestly for myself. I'm not an official spokesman of my party, and I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm really not pretending to speak for anybody else but myself. You ask me my personal opinion, you're getting it. I believe in what I say. It's as simple as that. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe that it is right for Mr. Trump to speak to India in this way. Whoever is in the Indian government, whichever party is in power, our self-respect is simply not up for bargaining. I'm sorry. It's as simple as that. And as far as the substance is concerned, by all means, keep a cool head. By all means, negotiate over the next 3 weeks with sense. Try and explain to the Americans why we have certain red lines. We have 700 million people in our country who are dependent on agriculture. We cannot sell them down the river with subsidized American grains flooding our market. There are other areas where we might be able to show some flexibility and some give. I think we may not be needing to resist a number of American items where, in any case, only a small percentage of Indian consumers can afford to buy them, just like we gave in during Trump 1.0 on Harley-Davidson motorcycles, because Trump made an issue of that. I mean, after all, they went from selling, God knows, 83 motorcycles in India per year to about 280 motorcycles instead after we lowered the tariffs. Doesn't hurt anybody. We didn't need to impose heavy tariffs on Harley-Davidsons because it's a very small elite segment that can afford them. So like that, there may be things we can give in on to show the Americans we're making concessions, but which will not hurt the vast majority of Indians, because the vast majority of Indians will not be buying those American items. To my mind, that kind of negotiation we should be doing. But when it comes to fundamentals,
Right.
there are interests that any government would have. Frankly, whether it is Mr. Modi or tomorrow Mr. Gandhi, no one is going to sell our farmers down the river. There is a consensus that we are living with an agricultural economy on which a substantial percentage of our population is still dependent. We have a certain political responsibility towards them. No government can afford to abandon that.
So in a sense, you're endorsing the red line that Prime Minister Modi and his government has drawn. The Prime Minister has also very clearly said, no compromise when it comes to agriculture. We will be there to defend our farmers' interests, even if it means taking tough choices.
Yes, I mean, the truth is that on these matters, I think most Indian governments have recognized some of our vulnerabilities. And agriculture, because so many farmers are living very, very close to breakpoint. You know that we have farmer suicides every year. When harvests fail and they are unable to pay their debts, many farmers take their lives. These are not people you can suddenly impose phenomenal competition from subsidized, mass-produced grain. And that's just one example, but it's an example of the fact that in every democracy, people have red lines that reflect the domestic interests of their country. America has red lines that reflect the political power of certain interest groups and certain lobbies. Any American negotiator will understand that if it's properly explained. So I wish our negotiators luck in explaining some of these things and persuading their own government that we are really offering the best deal that we can offer.
My final question to you, we've seen Donald Trump on the ceasefire, Shashi Tharoor, try and claim credit not once, twice, but 29, 30 times and counting, saying he was responsible for an Indo-Pak ceasefire on Operation Sindoor. Now we've seen the manner in which he's sort of taking on India, calling us a dead economy. In your view, have we dealt with Donald Trump the wrong way? How would you have dealt with someone like Donald Trump, who either seems to like flattery in some form, or else, as you're suggesting, confront him? What is the ideal way? If you were advising the Prime Minister or the diplomats who are negotiating with Donald Trump, how does one deal with someone like a Donald Trump? Have you ever seen anything like this in your long career in public life?
No, I don't think anyone has seen quite a political leader. You'll have to ask Melania Trump, I think, how she deals with the Donald. But let me just say, Rajdeep, that as far as Mr. Trump's claims about the ceasefire were concerned, my assumption is that he must have lent heavily on the Pakistanis. And we should have probably given him credit for that. You know, we didn't need persuading, and he didn't call us because we signaled from day one that if the Pakistanis hit, we hit. If they stop, we stop. That was always the approach that the Congress, that the government of India took consistently. And therefore, we didn't need persuading. But the Pakistanis may have been trying to explore all options of hitting India, especially after we hit their 11 air bases on the night of the 9th, 10th. Maybe the Americans lent heavily on the Pakistanis. So we could have given him credit for that and said, you know, your contribution in getting the Pakistanis to sue for peace, we really appreciate. That was a very nice gesture. Something like that to flatter him, I don't know. But I mean, that perhaps would have been enough to mollify him. Because certainly he did not persuade us, and I think the Prime Minister is right in clarifying to the Indian public that he didn't get any call or any pressure from the Americans. He didn't need it either. But the Pakistanis may well have done, and that may be why the Pakistanis are following over backwards to express their gratitude to America for having given them the face saving out of a brokered peace.
Okay. Shashi Tharoor, for speaking your mind and speaking so plainly, I wonder what would be your first line? What would be a Tharoorism? If you met Donald Trump tomorrow morning, you have a Tharoorism to give us? What would you tell Donald Trump?
I'll tell you after it happens, Rajdeep. Take care. Thanks very much.
Yeah, but we may, we may well need you at some stage to send out Donald Trump the kind of message that you sent on this show tonight. But I appreciate, Shashi Tharoor, you joining me here on the show. Thank you so much. Shashi Tharoor there, speaking rather plainly and wanting a tough line on Donald Trump. The government still hasn't used, though, the T word, which is why all eyes were on Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who was at the Business Today India at 100 conclave. The minister, though, stayed away from the Trump question, instead claimed India's exports this year will be more than the previous year, a reassuring statement amidst the continuing economic uncertainty. Here are excerpts from Piyush Goyal at the Business Today conclave.
How do you think we as a nation will deal with this challenge of deglobalization and how the trade order is being completely dismantled? And what do you think is the playbook going to be? How are you going to tackle this, including these penal tariffs on India imposed by the US?
I don't see any deglobalization. I see countries restructuring their trade routes and their trade partners. And I'm quite confident this year, India will do more exports than we did last year.
And you already have mitigated, all factors put in place. BRICS become stronger?
Well, I think these are questions you should ask the Honorable Foreign Minister. But I can only talk about trade and commerce. India's exports in the current year will be more than they were last year.
I think in the last 1 year, you must have maybe had conversations with 24 countries for global trade or more. So if I were to ask you by 2030, 2035 or 2047, what would be the shape of India's engagement with the global trading blocs, and how many free trade agreements would we have? Just one quick point. You have made it clear to us how the previous round of free trade agreements was with economies that were still developing and how you are now pursuing a developed strategy. Can you give us that overview?
Well, I think India today is much stronger, much more self-confident, much more respected. We have a decisive leader. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is amongst the tallest leaders in the world, most respected. We have today a country which produces the highest number of STEM graduates every year. We have a country which is already growing at 6.5% a year, which will only get better in the years to come. We will, of course, have trading arrangements with other nations with whom we have complementarity rather than doing trade agreements with countries done as was done by the UPA, which really didn't help Indian business as much as it should have. Whereas on the contrary, if you see our trade agreements, even business today and India today could not find fault with it, despite your best efforts. So UAE, Mauritius, Australia, the four-nation EFTA bloc, Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and Iceland, UK. We are in dialogue with many other countries, Oman, EU, US, Chile, Peru, many others, New Zealand, many others want to start engaging with India. So today the world recognizes the strengths of India, recognizes our demographic advantages, recognizes what 1.4 billion aspirational Indians bring to the table as demand. An aggregate demand that India has is a huge market. Why else do you think everybody is vying up to do trade or have better market access in India?
Minister sounding positive there. Now, one of the challenges with the Trump tariffs has been, could this be India's 1991 moment, where India turns a potential crisis or at least a challenge into an opportunity? Now, someone who knows a thing or two about 1991 was Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, the former deputy chairman of the Planning Commission, a key member of the Manmohan Singh Narasimha Rao team that unleashed those reforms. With the tariff war raging, can India use this crisis as an opportunity? Is the question I posed to Dr. Ahluwalia at the Business Today Summit. Listen in. Dr. Ahluwalia, let me start with what a number of political and economic commentators are calling 2025 and the tariff war with the United States as a potential crisis that could also create opportunities, much like 1991. Is there any parallel at all between what happened in 1991, when a balance of payments and a foreign exchange crisis forced us into reform, and what we are now facing in 2025 with economic uncertainty and these tariff battles?
Well, thanks, Rajdeep. I feel a bit like a Christian being thrown before the lions, having you on the other side. Look, every crisis creates an opportunity. I mean, simply because you face a difficult situation, you dust up whatever you think you needed to do, and it increases the urgency of doing it. This is not the same thing as saying it's a good thing that President Trump has done what he has done, because quite honestly, all these things were necessary for us if we wanted to achieve the objective of Viksit Bharat. Because we've been growing for the last 20, 30 years, 23 years at least, at about 6.5%, give or take a little bit. And the objective that we had set requires us to grow on an average up to 2047, somewhere around 8.5%. And in order to do that over this long period, you must allow for some slowing down in the process. So the reference rate, maybe for the next 5 or 10 years, should be closer to 9%. So in that sense, being at 6.5 and having to get to 9%, even if you didn't have the Trump tariffs, was a challenge, okay? What this has done, of course, is it's avoided it's got rid of the comfort that we're moving along at 6.5, and we need to do something. It's different, in my view, from 1991, because although in a deep sense, 1991 was a very immediate crisis because we just ran out of foreign exchange reserves, because we hadn't taken corrective steps for the previous year and a half. So we just couldn't have carried on doing what we were doing. Nobody was willing to lend to us. We're not in that situation now. I mean, the reserves are there, and if we don't do anything, growth rate will come down. It won't be exactly the same as running out of money, how to pay your import bill tomorrow. But it is important, in an important sense, it is a crisis because the 6.5 wasn't good enough. It wasn't generating the employment we need. And if we don't generate that employment, the internal tensions will increase. That's point number one. Point number two is that the world has become totally different from 1991. See, in 1991, that was a high point of successful globalization. We were the odd guys out. I mean, I wrote a piece at that time internally for the government, and I said, look, everybody else is doing this. We're the only ones that are not. It was easy to prove that we are doing the wrong thing because we weren't doing well. Today, the problem is that it's not clear how the world is going to move. It's not a world in which everybody is talking the same language. So the problem becomes more complex. How do you decide what is the right thing to do? And then there are two other complications which you need to keep in mind. One, technology. I mean, technology is changing much more rapidly. Technology has always changed. But earlier, the change in technology took maybe a decade or so to take effect. Today, I mean, ChatGPT in about another year will be increasing its capacity by a magnitude of 2. So the rate of change of this technology is huge. And how are we going to react? What will it do for us? And the last one is climate change. We're not operating in a world in which the climate is going to be the same thing. That introduces new urgency. So quite frankly, it's not just Mr. Trump, although obviously he's drawing all the public attention. But yes, we have a crisis situation. We need to take a good look at what our priorities should be in this situation.
Whether we use the word crisis, maybe we should then use the word challenge. Our challenge is how do we move from 6.5% growth rate to 8.5%. Are you therefore saying that our preoccupation shouldn't be with what Donald Trump does or does not do with tariffs? Our preoccupation is to get our own act together here to ensure that our manufacturing becomes competitive enough, that our growth rates are sustainable at an 8.5%, which may provide more jobs, which may perhaps make us far more competitive in an increasingly uncertain global economy.
Well, let me comment on on these areas. One is very clear that what President Trump has done is upended the existing, if you like, rule-based trading system. There's no way of disagreeing with that. He's done it, okay? Now, obviously, he's done it because he thinks this is going to be good for the US. Most respectable economists around the world don't. In fact, they think what he's done will actually not make America great again. it'll actually fragment America's capacity. Unfortunately, at the moment, it doesn't look like that because, inflation seems to be under control. Growth in the US also doesn't seem to be that much affected. But most people say that the full effects of the tariff have not yet come in. So it is going to take about 3 or 4 months before the US decides whether what Trump is doing is good for them. I personally think it's not. But I think we have to look at it in the following way. There's no doubt that what the US is doing is acting like a bully. Now, they're a big boy, the biggest one in the block, so they can't afford it. But what should we do? The normal argument would be that when somebody acts like a bully, everybody else says, look, we're not going to accept that. Unfortunately, everybody is not doing this. All the big boys, EU, UK, Japan, you name it, they have all effectively kowtowed to the US position. And this leaves us in a situation where, how do we react? I don't think that we should be necessarily provoking conflicts. We should be doing exactly what we are doing, which is trying to negotiate with the US how good a deal can we get. And when you say how good a deal, it's quite absurd to be having high tariffs, even 25%, when the US wants much lower tariffs and faces much lower tariffs for themselves. Our problem is at the moment 25 could become 50. So hopefully our negotiators are trying to get as good a deal as possible with the US. That's the only thing to do, and wish them luck. But I think we need to do more than that. I think our trade strategy, we need to address the question. A lot of people are saying that the old idea of being open is wrong, that you should raise protectionist barriers. The Chinese have always done it, the Americans are doing it, etc., etc. I think that's wrong. I think we should be linking up with a non-US part of the world and saying, look, let's integrate and open up with each other. So in that sense, I think the UK FTA is a very good example. I think we should conclude an FTA with EU as quickly as possible. And I think we should also look eastward. Now, I can understand that there's a political difficulty in doing RCEP because our industry opposed, I'm told, I don't know, but I'm told, that industry was very opposed to any free trade agreement which had China in it because they feel China is difficult to compete with. But we could join the comprehensive progressive trade partnership, the CPTPP, which includes Japan, which includes Korea, which includes Australia, which includes other countries. Now, this would be a very major signal. Those who say that India is wedded to closed markets, if you want to give a signal that we are not, in my view, we should apply to join the CPTPP.
So we diversify our
Well,
trade.
hang on. CPTPP is not just about tariffs. Far too much of our intellectual thinking in the country is based on the assumption that open trade means lowering tariffs. But it also means harmonizing behind-the-border standards, which traditionally we have been very reluctant to do. Now, frankly, in the way the world is evolving, I think we should face the fact if other people are agreeing, if other people are doing an alignment of behind-the-border standards, then India should be willing to do it. And of course, you negotiate, you determine the time period, but that would give a clear signal that, look, the rest of the world wants an open system. The US doesn't. We would welcome the US joining when it's ready, but we don't just sit around building little walls around ourselves. And that is a big challenge for us to accept.
Montek Singh Ahluwalia calling for a more open economy, not a protectionist one. That's one of the opportunities, perhaps, that the Trump tariff war presents. Let's turn from there to another war. Opposition versus Election Commission of India war intensifying. Leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, responded once again today to the Election Commission of India, who had asked him to sign a declaration on the charges he had made of vote chori or vote theft, or apologize. Rahul Gandhi stated he's already taken an oath of the Constitution in Parliament, instead asked the poll body to answer to his 5 questions of vote chori first, or alleged vote chori first. Listen in to Rahul Gandhi, who had hit the street today in Bengaluru as part of his protests.
Here are 5 questions to the Election Commission of India. Instead of threatening us, threatening me, answer these 5 questions. Number 1, why are you not giving voter lists in digital machine readable format to the people of India? Number 2, why are you destroying video evidence? Number 3, why is ECI committing massive fraud in the voter lists? Number 4, why is ECI threatening opposition instead of answering our questions? And finally, why is ECI behaving like an agent of the BJP?
Now, soon after this, the Election Commission of India responded to the allegations and posted them on Twitter or X. Number 1, the Congress's plea of providing machine-readable voter lists was rejected by the Supreme Court. So, the Election Commission has taken refuge in the Supreme Court. On the second question of CCTV, the poll body said that reviewing CCTV footage of 1 lakh booths will take 1 lakh days. Any aggrieved candidate can instead file an election petition for CCTV footage within 45 days. Only then will it be retained. Number 3, during preparations of electoral rolls for Lok Sabha election 2024, hardly any appeals were filed by the Congress. Number 4, Rahul Gandhi has made many such allegations in the past, has not filed any written complaint ever. The poll body has also once again asked Rahul Gandhi to sign a declaration or apologize to the nation. So the war continues. The Election Commission seemingly not willing for a proper investigation. But we have investigated instead. If the Election Commission doesn't want to investigate Rahul Gandhi's charges, India Today has. The Election Commission, as I said, under fire. Now, leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, had accused it of voter list manipulation in a specific assembly segment of central Bengaluru. In particular, he cited one address where 80 voters were allegedly registered in a single-room house. India Today's Sagai Raj went and investigated the claim on the ground. Take a look at what he found out in this special report.
India Today visited the address at the center of this political storm. And what we found raises serious questions. The house, which is barely 10 to 15 square feet, is currently occupied by a food delivery agent from West Bengal who moved in just a month ago. He claims he has no link to the alleged 80 voters and has denied knowing anyone on the list.
आप यहाँ पे भाड़े में रहते हो?
हाँ रेंट।
किसका घर है ये?
वो सर का नाम जयराम रेड्डी।
जयराम रेड्डी है। कौन है वो? किस पार्टी का है?
वो तो पता नहीं सर। मैं इधर 1 महीना आया सर।
हाँ।
इधर मैं 1 महीना आया, ठीक है। मैं ज़्यादा दिन हुआ।
कौन था? कुछ पता था?
वो ओनर सर ही बता सकते हैं।
कितना बड़ा है आपका घर?
The house is owned by Jairam Reddy. When contacted by India Today, Reddy initially confirmed being affiliated with the party, but later backtracked.
ನೀವೇನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ ಜಯರಾಮ್ ಸರ್?
ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನಾವು ಪಾರ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾವೇನು ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಗೆ ವೋಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಹೌದಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಬೆಲೆ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ವರ್ಕರ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಏನ್ ಕತೆ?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದೇನು ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ. ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಜೊತೆ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ವಾ?
ಇಲ್ಲ.
Shockingly, Reddy also admitted that he never informed Election Commission officials about the anomaly, despite knowing that most of the registered voters no longer reside there.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿ 10-15 ವರ್ಷ ಹಿಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಇದ್ದವರೆಲ್ಲ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ರು ಖಾಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓಟಿರೋರೆಲ್ಲ ಖಾಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರು.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಅಲರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಈ ತರ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಇದ್ರೂ ಅದೇ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತವರೆಗೂ 80 ಜನ ವೋಟರ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಎನ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇವಾಗ 80 ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ವೋಟರ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅವರು ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕೆಲವರು ಊರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕೆಲವರು ಊರ್ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ವೋಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಕೆಲವರು ಅದು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಊರಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಟ್ಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಒರಿಸ್ಸಾ, ಬಿಹಾರ, ನಮ್ಮ ಮಂಡ್ಯದ ಕಡೆಯವರು.
India Today also spoke to the Muniratna BLO, who confirmed that there are 80 voters registered in that one house.
ಬಂದು ಬಾಡಿಗೆಗಿರೋದು 2024ರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಆವಾಗ ಆ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಶಿಫ್ಟೆಡ್ ಅಂತ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ ಆಫೀಸ್ಗೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅವರು ಒಂದು 14 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಸ್ಟೇ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಕನ್ಫರ್ಮ್ ಯಾರು ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ರೆಂಟಲ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಜನ ಎಷ್ಟು 80 ಜನ ವೋಟರ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಯಾರು ಸ್ಟೇ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ಆವರೇಜ್ ನನಗೇನಂದ್ರೆ 10 ವರ್ಷ ಆವರೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 80 ಜನ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 8 ಜನ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಎನ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. 8 ಜನ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಎನ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವರ್ಷ ಲೈಕ್ 4 ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ಇಬ್ರಿದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ 12 ತಿಂಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ.
This is a fact. We have a lot of other information. We will feed them. Now we have just given him, our election commission, what are the things which he has to look up. Definitely whatever research we have done, we will give more. We have asked all our cadres to just look at it. We know that elections can't be, we know that the time has barred for going for an election petition. We know that will not help. But we want to set right the system, and what is wrong in the system has to be informed to the people of this country.
For now, what's clear is this: Rahul Gandhi's claims have found some ground.
It is the house of Dipankar. He says that he is living here from past 1 month, and it is a very small house where he can accommodate only 1 or 2 people, which has a hall and a kitchen and a bathroom, and it doesn't even have a bedroom. And as per the allegations made by Rahul Gandhi, he said that around 80 people have enrolled for voter list from this particular house number 35, here in Munreddy Garden near Bellanduru. With video journalist Madhu Sagaraj reporting for India Today, Bengaluru.
Sagai Raj exposing the reality of house number 35. Let's turn from there to Bihar, the other state which is in the eyes of the Election Commission versus opposition storm. Remember, a massive row has erupted over the ongoing special intensive revision of electoral rolls. The Election Commission claims they are purifying the rolls. The opposition is alleging mass voter deletions, especially in remote and sensitive regions. What's the reality on the ground? India Today's Maushmi Singh travelled to Araria district in Simanchal to investigate the truth behind the deletions and met those most directly affected. Remember, 65 lakh voters have already been cut off from the rolls across Bihar. Take a look.
Ahead of battleground Bihar, a bitter war is brewing over ballot list in the state. Tensions are high over the ongoing revision of the electoral roll. The government and the opposition are trading barbs over the transparency of the exercise. But India Today decided to reach ground zero, to Araria district in Simanchal, where the impact of this exercise is most evident. India Today visited village after village to verify what is actually happening on the ground. One such village is Baijnathpur, ward number 6, booth number 213 and 214.
Almost 36 lakh have moved to other places, and 7 lakhs are those voters who are registered in multiple locations. For those whose name doesn't figure in the list, struggles like these are a daily affair, where they strive, go to the BLO office, trying to make themselves count in that mammoth election commission's exercise.
We first met Raj Mistry and Ganga Paswan, who narrated their ordeal and ended up dialing the BLO yet again over the roll exercise.
Ganga Paswan, whose name is not listed, can be enrolled by filling Form 16 and giving a declaration that he is a resident of that place. And वो पर्चा दिखाइए जो लिखे थे. So this is a small slip that will actually define and tell you about the travails and the hardship ordeals of the villagers, because here is the name of the BLO. Every time he came, he was given that number that is of the BLO, Mr. Rajdeep. ये आप इनको ऑनलाइन भरने के लिए कह रहे हैं, ऑनलाइन भर पाओगे आप?
नहीं भर तो लेते, लेकिन इसमें क्या कमी था तो ये लोग न बताएगा.
And soon a small group of people gathered around with their papers, some unsure if their names exist on the list. Meanwhile, several others don't know how to check.
तो किस तरह की परेशानी हो रही है? चिंता है कि नहीं?
चिंता है कि नहीं है? तो चिंता है, नहीं मिल रहा है तो चिंता है कि
क्या हो
नाम
जाएगा अगर नाम नहीं
नाम
होगा?
नहीं होगा तो मेरा काम कैसे होगा? तब हम चाहते हैं कि नाम हो, काम हो जाए मेरा।
वोटर लिस्ट में नाम जोड़ना है, हमको राशन कार्ड भी बनाना है, उसमें कुछ नहीं मिलता हमको।
तो आपका नाम नहीं है, इस बात की चिंता है?
नहीं है तो चिंता नहीं रहेगा कि इतना दिन हो गया अभी तक कुछ नहीं बना हुआ है।
नाम खोजते हैं, किसी का नाम मिलता है, किसी का नाम नहीं मिलता है। तो जब हमको मालूम चला कि ये चीज लगेगा तो हम अपना नाम भी स्वयं खोज रहे हैं और मेरा पत्नी का भी नाम नहीं मिल रहा है। मेरा नाम रंजा पासवान हुआ और पत्नी का नाम रीना देवी है। उनका
भी नहीं मिल रहा?
नहीं मिल रहा है।
The scale of confusion is evident. Most villagers either don't know about the electoral process or have been failed by it. Despite repeated submissions, their names remain missing. It is clear the electoral roll revision process is riddled with gaps, whether it is poor planning or lack of execution. The Aam Aadmi is bearing the brunt. And with elections around the corner, their only demand is simple. Please let us exercise our fundamental right, the right to vote.
Bihar, the land of Buddha, a hotbed of politics, is readying for elections. Watch this ground report as we bring you a reality check on the Election Commission's mammoth SIR exercise. Crisscrossing the state, going to the rural hinterlands and remote hamlets, we bring you this special coverage from battleground Bihar only on India Today.
Let's now turn to our Get Real India story. And our Get Real India story comes from Haryana, where private hospitals have stopped admitting patients now with Ayushman Bharat insurance cards. The reason? The Haryana government owes them crores of rupees. Tonight's Get Real India story is from Haryana.
The Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the government's flagship health insurance scheme, has run into rough weather in Haryana. Since Thursday, over 650 private hospitals across the state have suspended treatment under the scheme. There are over 1.5 crore beneficiaries of the scheme in Haryana. Those who are reaching hospitals are being turned away.
आयुष्मान कार्ड से इलाज कराने के लिए 2-3 हॉस्पिटल का चक्कर काट लिए प्राइवेट का, कहीं भी नहीं इलाज कर रहा है। वो बोल रहा है कि मेरा पेमेंट नहीं हो रहा है।
These are the posters, notices that have been placed on the hospitals at 690 hospitals in Haryana that the surgery or any treatment under Ayushman Bharat Jan Arogya scheme is being struck off, and it will be taken till coming days. And on 14th of August there is a review meeting which will decide further course of action.
Patients who need surgeries are among those affected.
किसी ने तीसरे पर्सन ने बताया यहाँ जाओ पंचकुला, यहाँ अच्छा हो जाएगा। यहाँ हम करवाने आए तो उन्होंने बोला आयुष्मान भारत कार्ड यहाँ बंद हो चुका है, यहाँ वैलिड नहीं हो रहा अभी।
The Indian Medical Association in Haryana says 490 crore rupees in dues are pending and hospitals can't continue free treatment without payment.
हमने ये डिसाइड किया है जब तक कोई ठोस इस चीज़ का हल नहीं निकलता हम तब तक ये सर्विसेज सस्पेंड रखेंगे। कोई भी इमरजेंसी पेशेंट आएगा हम उसको फर्स्ट एड प्रोवाइड करके उसको स्टेबलाइज करके आगे हम उसको रेफर कर देंगे।
60% of the funding for Ayushman Bharat scheme comes from the centre and 40% from the Haryana government. At present, the state government's budget for the scheme is only 700 crore rupees. But doctors claim the actual annual requirement is around 2000 crore rupees.
रोहतक जिले की अगर मैं बात करूं तो हमारे भी यहाँ पर कम से कम 25 करोड़ की राशि है जिसका भुगतान अभी तक नहीं हो पाया है। जो असुविधा आज के दिन मरीज को हो रही है उसके लिए सरकार पूरी तरह से जिम्मेदार है।
The Naib Singh Saini government has appealed to doctors to continue treatment of patients under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. The doctors will meet again after August 14th to decide future course of action. With Kamaljeet Sandhu and Aman Bharadwaj, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let me end Friday night with a teaser to one of our weekend shows, a podcast with actor John Abraham, who's promoting his upcoming film on Z5, Tehran. It is a film with a political twist, but John claims he's apolitical and doesn't want to get caught between the battle on cinema between right and left wing or in the censorship wars taking place. Listen in to John Abraham, an excerpt from that podcast. Are you okay with the idea that there is someone out there overseeing your creative work? Would you just like there to be no censor board or minimal censorship?
I think you need censorship, but the way it's being overseen, could be a big question mark. Till now, they've been good with us, kind with us, and we've also I'll talk about myself. I've been responsible with the way I've made my films, or spoken in my films, because I say this on record, I'm not right-wing, I'm not left-wing, I'm apolitical, I'm politically aware, and it's important for me to make a statement honestly. But for me, what's worrying is when, right-wing films find a huge audience, that's when you ask yourself as a filmmaker, what line am I going to toe? Am I going to toe the commercial line to make so much more money? Or am I going to stay true to what I want to say? So I think I've taken the latter. I've made a choice to take the latter and set things as they are. And in Tehran, this is not a patriotic film. This is, like you said, it was, in 2012, it's not a patriotic film, but you've shown India as they were. And my trailer says it, that India has deserted me.
It's interesting you're saying right-wing films get these huge audiences. We've seen films like Kashmir Files. This year's big hit was Chhava. Around Chhatrapati Shambhaji Maharaj with Aurangzeb as the villain. Are you saying that you're not right wing, you're not left wing, you're apolitical? But is there that temptation every now and then? If I want to make a commercial blockbuster today, maybe I need to sort of go with the flow and make a right wing film with an Indian Muslim as the villain.
No, so I haven't seen Chhava, so I can't comment on that. I've heard people have loved it. People have also liked Kashmir Files. But what I'm trying to say is that, when films are being made with the intent to sway people in a hyper-political atmosphere and they find an audience, that's scary. And to answer your question, no, I've never been tempted. And I'm never going to make those kind of films. Just like I can't make adult comedies. It's difficult for me to produce those kind of films or even act in those kind of films. So it's a choice.
Are you sympathetic to filmmakers who struggle with the censor board?
Totally.
Who make these films with all their heart and passion and then eventually find themselves struggling to get their films across through the censor board.
Yeah, so we've been pulled up a number of times, but there are people in the censor board who do listen as well. So it's important to find the right voice or the right audience there to get your point across. And I believe if they see sense in what you're doing, you'll get through.
And you can hear the entire interview with John Abraham. He talks about life of how a Bandra boy became a big star. That's coming up this weekend only on India Today. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar.